FMCSA just changed the rules on who can legally hold a CDL, and so many drivers out there don't even know that this happened yet. This isn't one of those small updates. This is something that can affect who's allowed to be on the road starting right now. And what's even more important is why the rule was created in the first place. Because this all came after real safety concerns, real crashes, and overall just a system that wasn't being checked properly. Today I'm going to be breaking down exactly what changed, what it means for drivers out there, and yes, all drivers, and what you need to do as a driver so that this doesn't catch you off guard. This video is not about opinions, it's not about politics, this is strictly about what changed, why it changed, and how it's going to be affecting drivers on the road. What I'm going to be explaining to you is going to be based on the actual FMCSA rules that have just recently went into effect, and the real data that led up to it. So here's what's actually changed. FMCSA introduced the final rule targeting something called non-domiciled CDLs. These are CDLs that are issued to people that don't permanently live in the United States, or in a US state, should I say. Now in the past, some states were issuing these licenses without fully verifying certain things, and that's where a lot of the problem started. Now what this new rule does is it forces states to verify immigration status before issuing, renewing, or even reinstating a CDL. Not after, not loosely, before. And I'm going to explain in a minute why that matters way more than people realize, especially during inspections. Now, as many of us know, this rule didn't just come out of nowhere. FMCSA actually found what they call nationwide non-compliance. In simple terms, the systems that were set into place were not being used properly by several states. And according to the data, there were at least 17 fatal crashes in 2025 involving drivers who would not have qualified under these new sets of rules. Those crashes resulted in over 30 deaths. So when people ask, why does this matter? Yeah, that's why it matters. Now let's break down what actually changed in a way that affects drivers. Point number one is that eligibility tightened. Not everyone qualifies anymore. Only specific visa categories are now allowed. H2A, H2B, and E2. Before, there were a lot more gray areas, but now it's very specific. Point number two is that work permits alone does not equal good enough. So just having a work authorization is no longer good enough. That's a pretty big shift right there. Point number three is the SAVE system. States now have to verify status using a federal system. This means less guessing, less assumption, more verification. Point four is a shorter CDL validity. Many of these licenses are now limited to about 1 year, or it's tied directly to visa expiration. And this part right here is going to be something that's going to really start affecting drivers, not immediately for all of them, but over time. So let's talk about what this is actually going to look like on the road. When you're dealing with inspections, documentation matters, communication matters, and verification matters. Officers aren't just looking at your license, they're also looking into, if everything adds up, the totality of circumstances. And I have seen situations on the road where documentations don't match, or there were communication issues. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit confusing because what I already explained to you is already a rule. But what a lot of truck drivers are actually hearing about right now is something called Dalilahs Law. And I want to clear this up right away because Dalilahs Law is not current law. It's a proposed federal bill. But if it does get passed, it goes way further than what FMCSA just did. And this is the part that can really change trucking long term, not just right now. So here's exactly what Dalilahs Law is trying to do. It basically takes everything that FMCSA rule and locks it in permanently, meaning this wouldn't just be a regulation anymore that can just be changed later. This would actually be federal across the board. So key difference number one with Dalilahs Law would be forced state audits. One of the biggest things in this bill is that it would require states to go back and audit existing CDLs. Not just new drivers, but drivers who already have CDLs. And that's where things can get very real for a lot of people out there. Because this isn't just forward looking, it's also going back too, which can throw many people for a loop. So if someone got a CDL under the improper circumstances, we'll say, even they are not in the clear. Key difference number two is going to be about English requirements. And this is again another major part about this bill. It's pretty much stricter enforcement of the English proficiency protocol. This means that drivers would have to be able to communicate with law enforcement, properly read road signs, and fill out reports with no problems. And again, this is not brand new. Technically, this has always been a requirement, but this bill would allow enforcement to be a lot stricter than what it currently is, especially in some states. Key difference number three, penalty for states. And this part doesn't really get talked about enough. States that don't follow those rules could lose federal highway funding. So now it's not just about drivers out there. This is also about states that are failing to enforce these things, which is good because several people and entities shall be held accountable. Key difference number four is going to be the crackdown on the loopholes. This bill also targets things like fraudulent CDL setups, dispatch systems that bypass rules, which I know is a massive one, and just companies taking advantage of loopholes out there. This is basically aimed at cleaning up parts of the system that weren't being enforced properly. Now, here's the reality. importantly, this bill has not passed yet. And that's important. But if it does pass, this becomes a much bigger shift than what we're seeing right now. So just to keep things clear, what we're seeing right now is the FMCSA rule already in effect. And Dalilah's Law is something that can take things even further. Now, with that in mind, let's get back to what's happening exactly right now at this point in time and what drivers are going to start noticing on the road. So what should drivers actually do? Make sure your documentation is valid and up to date. Do not wait until renewal. Understand your eligibility and be prepared for much stricter verification, because there are many people out on the roads that are not properly qualified to be out on the roads, so therefore they should not be on the roads. All of this is not something that you want to find out for the first time during a DOT inspection. Now, like stated before, this isn't a rule that's just going to hit everyone overnight, but over the next year, this is going to change who is legally on the road and who is legally allowed to be able to get onto the road. It's going to change hiring, it's going to change compliance, and it's going to change how closely things are checked. So hopefully, gone are the days of all of the shortcuts, and gone are the days of so many things being overlooked when it comes to licenses, CDLs, and unqualified drivers being out on the roads. At the end of the day, it comes down to one thing: accountability. The rule is about making sure that drivers are properly vetted, properly documented, and properly qualified. And whether you agree with it or not, it is happening. If you want more real trucking breakdowns like this, more trucking news, compliance news, everything the trucking industry talk, and you want to learn about what actually matters on the road, make sure to consider subscribing to the channel. As always, stay safe, keep rolling.